Today, I'm kind enough to be joined by the number 5 ranked Bellator Featherweight contender, Jeremy Kennedy. He's set to take on Pedro Carvalho in a very exciting top 5 matchup for the division. It takes place January 25th. Obviously, a big fight. I'm sure you're excited for that one. How's everything, man? How's life?
Yeah, man, it's good. I'm excited for this fight, but we're deep in camp now. So it's just focusing on that weight and the recovery and fine-tuning all things. It's been a long camp. I've known of this fight weeks, 18 weeks. So it's trying not to get like overexcited and train too hard too early and peak too soon and whatnot. So it's been a bit of a battle scaling back. I've just got so excited, and once you have a name and an opponent, a date, everything, to not just flip that switch is pretty tough. But we're here now. We're in the home stretch, and I can't wait for it.
So, what I wanted to ask you, man, is it's obviously a big fight, right? I'm sure the preparation has to be high intensity. Obviously everything goes into it, right? So how has it been? How's the whole preparation for this fight been? It's obviously a very important fight for your career. So how have you been approaching the whole thing, and how's the preparation been for it?
Yeah, man, it's a huge fight. Like everything's at stake for this one now. Number one contender shot. Moving forward in the division. I've worked a long time, building up in this division, fighting top contenders to finally earn this number one contender shot. I think this is the fourth top 5 guy in a row.
Yeah.
So not just leaving no stone unturned, just continuing on what I did last camp. For the Pico fight, I was in the best shape of my life, and I've added a lot of new strength conditioning and recovery tools. And like I was telling you, the hyperbaric, is why I was a little late to this interview.
Yeah.
So just staying disciplined in all those are I'm in shape, and it's an enemy territory. Just dotting on my I's, crossing my T's, flying out to Ireland and, out of my element, so I just want to make sure everything's in order.
And you said out of your element, right? You're fighting a guy that, well, he may not be Irish. I don't think he is. He does train at SBG. He's very comfortable there. I spoke to him last time. I think he fought in the same place, and he was really amped
Yeah.
and comfortable to be there. Is this like a new thing for you to be fighting a guy who you may be sort of in enemy territory? Have you ever done this before, and how does that affect you, or if at all?
Yeah, no, this isn't, new to me. Probably just the last few years, ever since COVID, and I signed with Bellator, and I was with the PFL before that. That was all domestic. That was all in the US. But prior to that, I mean, when I had my fights in the UFC and even in Brave outside of that, I was fighting in Australia, Brazil, Saudi Arabia, Morocco, always against local guys. So it's not something I'm unused to, but it's just something I haven't done in a while, so I know what I have to do, and I know how to prepare for that and be ready for that. I'm just excited to do it again now. It's been a few years, and fighting internationally like this in somebody else's backyard, and it's the best. That's how you get to really embrace all these different crowds. And I've heard nothing but cool things about the Dublin crowd, and sure, they're going to be boos now, well, at the beginning of the fight, but after the fight there'll be cheers, I'm sure. And yeah, I got to experience it. I'm excited for it, and this is big fight vibes. So, I mean, whether they're boos or cheering for me, cheering for him, it doesn't matter. It's just all noise. Once I get in there, I'm just excited for a big, full, sold out arena.
Yeah, 100%. And obviously, we're expecting a lot of energy to be in there, right? But is that something that you sort of seem to like want to harness based on what you're saying? That's kind of what I'm getting from you, right? Because I sort of looked at it as, oh, it can only maybe be something bad, but then you sort of think about it a little bit more, and you're like, you know what, maybe you might say, yeah, you know what, you want to boo me, MFers, like keep booing me. I'm going to beat this guy. There's sort of like a different kind of a motivation, right, to that too. So maybe you could feed off that, right?
Absolutely. Yeah. I just want to channel all that energy and turn it into something good. Exactly that. And if they're booing me, it's all good. It's just me and him in the cage. At the end of the day, you strip it all the way down, and it's just my skill set versus his skill set. And I feel like I'm the better fighter, and I just have to go prove that. It doesn't matter if we were fighting, in the 3 arena in front of thousands of people, or aisle 8 in Walmart. It doesn't matter. I'm going to whoop his ass, So just, I'm bringing that same intensity.
For sure. And I do want to get into that fight, right? That's obviously the big fight, the important fight, the next one. But I wanted to ask you, like a quick question about the last fight, right? Obviously, you spoke in the post-fight interview afterwards, and that's immediately right after, right? So I'm curious just to get
Yeah.
your thoughts now as some time has sort of passed. What are your thoughts on that fight, the Aaron Pico fight? It was obviously a big fight. Maybe it didn't end the way you would have exactly wanted. Maybe you would have wanted to win a little bit more emphatically, but you still got the win. You know what I mean? And you still got time in there with one of the top guys. So, looking back on it, as we're a few months away ahead now, or whatever the case may be, what do you think about it?
Yeah, I mean, it's just not ideal to have a fight end that way, but that happens. It's just funny that it happened again, a couple weeks later in the bantamweight title fight in the UFC with, TJ and Aljo. And it's just, you can't predict these things. They just happen, but that fight, like I said, I turned a new leaf in training camp. Like the way I was prepared for that guy, he opened something up in me to, invest everything into, like every day. As soon as I woke up, it was either I was training or I was recovering, and dieting was on point. Everything was just so dialed in because I knew he was that way. So I had to
Right.
be able to match that. And I knew he's a guy who comes in shape. So it just kind of like it elevated me as a professional. That whole fight, that whole camp, that whole vibes, when we were out there, interviews like crazy. I had like full media days, press conferences, face-offs, everything like that. It just added more to my experience level, And so now going into this next fight, and it's a co-main event, I'm sure we're going to be top billing. There's going to be a lot of media out there, and I'm ready for it. I'm just going to embrace it all. I can't wait for it. I'm excited for it, And the last time I had all that energy build up, and then it was one round, So now I'm like, and then it kind of just was kind of anticlimactic. So I'm kind of hoping that this one can go a little bit longer, get in there, get hit a little bit, we go have a little bit of a war, and what I didn't get for the last fight. But it is what it is on that one. You just got to move forward. I know Pico will be back, and I might see him down the line, whatever. I'm
Yeah.
full steam ahead now, at this fight. This is the number one contender fight. That's in the rear view now. And then get through Pedro, and we're looking nothing but up,
Yeah. And there seems to be sort of like like a
for that
revolving.
title.
My bad, man. I didn't even hear you there. Sort of the audio sort of went out, so I thought you stopped talking. My bad. But what I was gonna say was that division for sure. There's a big chance you'll see him again because there's sort of like a revolving door of matchups that go on in that top 10, right? And what I
Yeah.
was gonna ask you was, it seemed like you like you said, you use the word elevate, right? You elevated everything in the preparation for the last fight. And it had to have been because you were facing a guy who was like red hot. He was like on like a 6-7 fight win streak. He was obviously one of the bigger names in Bellator. Do you feel like that same need to elevate the training now, or even more so in this fight? Like, does it feel like obviously it's kind of dumb to say, does it feel like as an equal, does it feel equally as an important fight? Because obviously the next fight always is important, right? But do you feel that same feeling in this one? Like, I got to take this up a notch, everything I do.
Yeah, I know what you're trying to say and that's that it's skill set for skill set. I think Pico is a little bit more dangerous than Pedro is. Pedro's obviously got himself in this position by winning these fights, So I have to take him seriously. I can't take him lightly. I think that's the issue some of his opponents had in the past. And it's just in my DNA now. Now that I know what kind of level I've reached physically and mentally in preparation, I got to get there again, So this time around, and the travel, when I fought Pico, I'm in Vegas and it was in Long Beach, an hour and a half away. Now I'm going across, essentially the world, and different elements. So I just want to have everything in point. I want my weight low. I want to be in crisp, top shape. Everything's got to be perfect before I get on that plane to get out there. And not even just the opponent, it's the opponent, but it's also the environment that I'm just like trying to get that elevate. I want to have everything dialed in, anything, different food I'm eating, different anything, doesn't matter. I just want to be 100% when I get out there.
Yeah, that makes perfect sense to me, man. And listen, look, before we get into the the in-ring stuff, right? I saw you in the last press conference. You might have hinted at that there may be a bit of like a history between you and Pedro. Like, where did the whole thing start between you guys? Was it like a Twitter exchange? Like, where does this whole thing start between you two?
Yeah, so this guy, I like friendly call it, not even friendly. I called him out long time when the rankings first came out. and he was way above me, and he's been getting this like favoritism, and it's not even like I was trying to like pick on him and shit talk him, nothing like that. I was like, oh, I would like to get that Pedro fight. He was ranked, fifth, and I was eighth or something when it first came out. So I was looking up the ladder. Everyone else was booked, and I was like, oh, let's book that Pedro fight. And instead of like being like, yeah, or anything, not even acknowledging it, he just kind of like big time me, saying that, I didn't deserve to fight him. That was his narrative on this whole thing, is that, I got to earn my stripes in Bellator. I got to get a few wins. And it's like, bro, if you look at his records, he's winning the loss and he's exchanging losses, and I'm in Bellator fighting top level guys. I'm 3-1 in Bellator. My record is, twice what his is. And he's just trying to think that I got to earn this, so that kind of rubbed me the wrong way. And this was like 2 years ago. So I left it alone, left him alone, because he was, crickets every time when my name, I know he got offered me a few times through my management, let me know, and he was turning it down. And so he was getting other fights, still winning and losing those. And I just, I had that sour taste in my mouth with him. And then it was right before he had just beat Mads, and it was right before my Pico fight. He puts out a tweet being like, excited about the Borix and Pitbull fight. Jeremy Kennedy's nothing but a free paycheck to Pico or something out of nowhere, just dogs me, and then, congratulates everybody else. So I saw that, and this is like 3 days before my fight. And I was like, fuck this guy, and then what I wasn't thinking about him, I was just so focused in on the Pico fight. And then as soon as, the fight went the way it went, and they put that microphone in my face, I was like, oh yeah, now it's my time to really call it Pedro. And now here we are. I got the fight. I called it for his backyard. Doesn't matter. And so we're here now. And it pretty much just stemmed to him thinking, I didn't deserve to fight him for whatever reason. I think it could have been him just avoiding it. I think he knows stylistically this is not a good fight for him. But it is what it is now. And now contracts are signed and he's stuck.
So you think this is a fight that you kind of had to force his hand in, right? You had to kind of win, call him
yeah.
out,
Call him up publicly, make it where he couldn't, because he had been offered me a few times and he had turned it down. So I think now there was no other option. Out of the top five, we're the only two guys on a win streak. If he wants that title fight that he was trying to gun for, he's got to go through me, and vice versa. I got to go through him to move on. So now it's good timing, because now the fight actually makes sense. Both of us coming off of wins, and both of us in the top five. Everybody else is either injured, inactive, or coming off of a loss. So it makes sense now. We're the next two guys in line, and we got to figure this out and see who moves forward.
Yeah, 100%. And he's obviously a good fighter, right? I think he's fought Pitbull already before for the title, so he's experienced.
Yeah.
Like, what are you expecting in there on February 25th? What kind of fight do you think you're going to get?
Yeah, like he's a guy that he's winning these fights with just grit and dog in him, and he's got a lot of cardio. He's good and stays active. He doesn't stay in one place. If he's put in a bad position, he works until he's out, and he has a very good way of like swaying rounds, close rounds. He rallies at the end or something like that to make him where he's winning these rounds and winning these fights. So I think I just have to be making sure I'm coming in shape, and I'm not giving him an inch. I'm fighting my fight, and I think it's going to be a long night for him. Honestly, I think I'm different than any of the other guys he's fought, and I just think he's in for a rude awakening, man.
Stylistically, right? When you look at him, is there anything that stands out to you when you're watching tape on him, or anything at all that you're like, all right, definitely got to be careful of that?
Yeah, I think his volume, he's very active, and he switches stances well, predominantly southpaw, so he's a little tricky with his kicks and whatnot. He does leave himself open. He gets tagged a little bit on the feet, and you've seen him been sat down, but again, no quit in him. He's been dropped, I think, Weichel twice, and right away he still ends up winning that fight. He sways those rounds. They happen early, and he rallies back and he fights, and he's just got a lot, no quit in him. So that's a hard tough thing to go in there knowing a guy that's like, you got to really put him out to get him out of there. He's not going to quit. So that's probably his best attribute, is just his grit and his cardio. He's got a good gas tank to maintain that. But I think there's going to be a huge level of difference in the grappling, and yeah, I just think he's going to really have. I don't know where he's going to really take this fight, because I think striking, I got him. I think I got him on the grappling, and I got him on the wrestling, and I don't see him being able to outpace me. My cardio is something I pride myself on as well. So I think his good attributes feed right into my good attributes.
And when you've been preparing for him, you've obviously seen his fights, right? Because he's in your division, right? I would imagine just by virtue of watching events, you've seen this guy fight a bunch of times, right? But have you gone back and watched a lot of his old fights or again? Because I would think you've seen a lot of them. Have you been able to watch a lot of his fights again, or do you let your coaches do that?
Yeah, no. So I've watched all his fights all the way through, right? Just with
Okay.
being in the division, and when he Grand Prix, I was watching them as they happened. But once we got the fight, it was confirmed. We just went back and watched the last few fights, just because watching stuff from so long ago doesn't really matter to me anymore. I just wanted to see the most recent. I think it was his last three or four fights that we watched. Sat down as a team, saw some tendencies, saw some stuff we want to exploit, and that was about it.
Yeah, for sure. And listen, the reason I keep bringing it up is because, bringing up that it's a big fight is because it seems like it's a very, very, very big fight. Again, you guys are right in the thick of it, right? You guys are both in the top 5. You don't want to look ahead ever, right? I get it. Every fighter, the main thing is always, let's not look ahead. And I understand that, but you got to think this is a big fight, right? Like, there can't be many more wins till you get to a title. Do you agree with that? I mean, one more
Yeah,
win,
I mean,
two more. I mean,
that's what I've been told. This is a number one contender fight. This is for the belt, like
okay.
winner to the belt. So that's what I'm going with. I know the sport. Things can change. Dynamics, landscape can change. But as of right now, Pedro's my route to the title, and the title is what I started in this whole thing for. Reason why I wanted to go to Bellator is because I love their division, the featherweight division.
Yeah, it's
And
loaded.
yeah, and so I've spent 2 years building it, and now this is it. This is the next step. I got to go through this guy, and then whatever happens with that title next, who knows if Pitbull, what he's doing, he wants to go down. I don't know what's happening with AJ. He's coming back. I can't control any of that stuff. So I've been told this is number one contender. So I got to go out there and get my job done. And then February 26th, we'll see what happens with this belt.
Yeah, for sure. And obviously, when you look at Pitbull, who's a champion, what do you make of him as a fighter? You think he's I mean, he's number 1 pound for pound fighter in Bellator. A lot of people think he's like the best in the division of all class, in the weight class
Yeah,
of all time, right? What do you think of him? You think he's like this untouchable champion, or do you think he's very beatable?
I think he's very beatable, man. He's obviously good. He's been around forever, and he's been dominating double champ, and still even now going over to Horizon and beating their champ. And he's
Yeah.
top notch, and he beat Borix, and he's still on a win streak. He avenged against AJ, so he's whatever he's doing, it's working. I don't think he's faced a guy is quite that pressures the grappling, the wrestling quite like I do. He's fought some wrestlers in the past, but none of them really wrestled him, and I think he got away with that. And as of late, he's looked like he's fighting a little safe. I don't know if what the cause is. Maybe just stylistically, opponents, that's how they see it. I know he's a real tactical guy. I just think it's exciting, man. He's the GOAT. He's the Bellator kingpin. So how can I not want to fight that guy and be the one to dethrone him? And so just the excitement level alone. I don't want him to move divisions or I want my chance now. I want it before it's too late. So I got to be able to get in there with him. So that's why I got to earn it. And that's going through Pedro to be able to earn that fight, the next step. So I can't look past them because I'm so focused on Pedro right now, because none of this other stuff matters if I don't get this job done.
Yeah, exactly.
So that's hindsight to be excited about. But
Sure.
so
You need
far,
some
I'm
motivation,
so
right? Like, you need something to be motivated about to win the fight, right?
up and over, like, oh, it's the next step. I got to keep
Yeah.
going, and at these fights. So Pedro's all the focus right now, and it doesn't really matter until I beat Pedro, so I have to beat Pedro to be able to do these other things that I want to do. So that's just all the motivation.
As far as activity, right? I think it was after your last fight, you said you were trying to stay active. You get the win here. That's the goal here. You're still trying to be active.
By the summer, I would love to. Yeah, I got a nice turnaround with Pico into to this
Yeah.
one. I mean, it's still like 4 or 5 months is ideal for me. I would like to get 3 in 2023. Starting in February, it helps my case. Get one in by the summer and then again by the end of the year. But yeah, activity. It looks like the way the landscape is. Pitbull fought right on New Year's, so he should be wanting to. The title fight should be happening again in the summer sometime. So I get my job done and then hopefully get rebooked right away and just stay active. And that's been the struggle with my career. I've always wanted to stay active, and then when they have been offering me the fights, things in my circumstances hasn't been able to. I got injured with the first Pico fight and just little things like that. And so I really hope it all lines up this time around. Now I get the fight, and then I get a fight booked right away, and get to stay active and keep fighting here.
For sure, man. And those junior bacon cheeseburgers, is that still on the agenda? Is that still on the diet for you?
Yeah. It's funny. I just wait till after the fight. I don't even like everyday life. I don't when I'm not in camp. I don't really even eat like that at all. It's just now. It was just like a a childhood like hometown thing that was just everyone called me it, and then it stuck, and then now it's like it's
It's a
almost
great name.
tradition after the fight. Yeah, after the fights, I gotta go do it
Junior bacon
just
cheeseburger.
because. Yeah.
Yeah. So, I mean, after the fights, right? What is the go-to cheat meal? I mean, I feel like that's kind of a joke. So, like, what would be like the actual?
Yeah.
What is like the cheat meal for you? The ideal one?
For me, it's like, well, now we're gonna be in Ireland. It's gonna be. I'm still a
Okay, yeah,
burger and I like burger and fries, or I like pizza, one or the other, whatever I'm feeling that night. And usually after the fights, nothing's really open except for like a McDonald's or something. So I end up just smashing a bunch of that or whatever it is that's open. But it's usually pizza or burger, because that's the only stuff I like. I
I feel like
love
that's what
that I
everyone
have to
likes.
cut.
You really can't go wrong with pizza or burger, honestly. You just
You can't exactly. So
so
that and a
yeah,
beer.
yeah. Of
So
course, you got to have
maybe
a
a
drink
Guinness.
afterwards. Yeah,
Yeah,
Guinness, right? You're in Ireland, so that would be nice.
yeah.
And listen, I got a funny story for you. I was looking at some of your stuff, some fights and all, and I saw the tattoo you had of like the that tattoo. It's like the amount of wins you have, right? Like the numbers you got there.
Yeah,
It's
yeah.
funny, man, because I can only aspire to be a UFC fighter in my dreams or in my video games, right? So a few years back, I'm playing one of the old UFC video or just MMA in general. I'm playing one of the UFC video games and I'm doing
Yeah.
like the career mode. And I'm like, this guy did what I used to do with the freaking career mode shit. Like I used to write the fucking names on
Oh,
every single time. I wrote it on the rib cage too, dude. I'm not joking. It's a sick tattoo, which I like. I was
yeah,
thinking, yeah, like why doesn't anybody ever do that? It's pretty cool. So I just thought I'd share that.
yeah. That's fun.
So last question, man. After the win, you get
Yep.
this win, right? Are you gonna go right to the tattoo shop and get no, I'm just kidding. Last question is gonna be the
I'm,
last question is gonna be you know, it's gonna be an exciting fight, right? What could the fans expect to see, man?
yeah, I'm really hunting the finish this time around. I mean, I want to dominate in every aspect. I want to win the first minute to the last minute. And if it goes 3 rounds, that's what it takes. And I have to get my job done that way. It is, we're fighting the top level guys. You can never guarantee anything. He makes a mistake, I can capitalize. He doesn't make a mistake, I just have to dominate. So but for me, what they can expect is that I'm going to be hunting. I'm going to be hunting for that finish from the feet to the floor. I want to put this guy away and make a statement that I deserve that title shot.